So in that first reading, I think Elijah had a bit of an advantage. He already knew that the Lord was going to speak to him that day, and so he just had to be attentive, right? There's all this stuff going on. There's this torment, this windstorm, there's an earthquake, there's lightning, and then there's finally this tiny whispering sound. In some translations it says, a sound that is not a sound. It's inaudible, and yet that's the moment where he covers his face and goes out to meet the Lord. Because as you might know from biblical theology and understanding, whenever people cover their face, it's a sign that they're going to be in the presence of God. So Elijah knew that day he was going to encounter the Lord. But friends, what do we believe about God? Do we believe he's actually trying to speak to us, speak into my life, into my situation? Because if I believe that, then any day should really be an opportunity for me to be looking just like Elijah and saying, where is God? In what I'm experiencing, in the people I encounter, where is he? Am I even looking? Now think to this gospel reading we just had. If you remember from last week, Jesus fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish that were more than they could eat. And he has this grand experience. They are all fed. He dismisses his disciples. He dismisses the crowds. And then it says he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. I think Jesus is giving us an example of plans did not quite go the way he thought. Remember, he removed himself from the crowds. They got in a boat and went to the other side, but the crowds followed him. His intention was to be by himself with his disciples and his apostles. But that's not what happened. He had this whole crowd, and then he dismisses them, and he goes to pray, I think, about this experience that just happened. Where was God in this moment? And as to, I think, compound my point here, then we have this experience of Peter walking on the water. And he is trying to walk towards Jesus, trying to focus on him, but he's so distracted by the torment and everything going on around him that he starts to sink. But praise God, his saving grace is he says, Lord, save me, and he's pulled out from the water. My big point in all of this is to say, life is chaotic. I mean, right now is definitely chaotic with the world situation. But even in personal life, what's going on in your own heart, in your own families, in your own friendships, relationships, they're not always hunky-dory and butterflies and roses. But even if they're not, do I believe that God is actually trying to speak to me in the midst of that moment? One of the most practical ways I've found to be able to see where God is in the chaos of my own life is called the examination of consciousness. And what it is it's this thing come up by St. Ignatius of Loyola, who started the Jesuits. And actually what he said about this prayer is he said this to his disciples, those of the Jesuit order, if you end up not praying anything else through the day, at least pray the examination of consciousness. He thought it was that important for the point I'm trying to make. And in that examination of consciousness, what you do is you take 10 to 15 minutes to just reflect on the day. And look at those moments where did I cooperate with God's grace? Where did I sense his grace and I actually chose to be a part of that? And of course, on the other end, where did I maybe even sense God's presence or grace and I said no? That little practice right there, 10 or 15 minutes a night to reflect on your day, can make a world of difference in your own heart in being able to sense how God might be moving you. Because oftentimes all we get is the silent sound that is not a sound, the whispering wind. But if we really believe God is who he says he is, He must want to speak to us. Don't give up on listening.